gotta make it out to Vegas, where the lights shine bright. Vegas, in the clear desert night. Vegas, where they can make you a star. Vegas, at the NFR.
NFR Extra is a podcast dedicated to the Wrangler National Finals Rodeo and features icons and personalities that embody the Western lifestyle.
You know, these are our people, and it's salt of the earth, it's hard work, it's values, it's, believing in God, believing in this country, supporting our troops. It's trying to uplift the world a little bit, and what I think has become a little bit of a darker time. And, that's one of the takeaways that we have with this partnership is we want to promote what the cowboy and the cowgirl is and the values that they represent, because it's very much aligned with our values.
This is pro rodeo announcer Andy Seiler, and you are listening to NFR Extra. So we have learned at the NFR Extra podcast that the show gets better when the quality of our guests gets better. And today we have some high quality individuals. And I'm not referencing myself and Brylan. We have with us today Tarek Saab from Texas Precious Metals, a new partner this year at the NFR. And I am intrigued to know everything that Texas Precious Metals is, because honestly, the NFR was the first place I had heard about it, Tarek.
Yeah, so Texas Precious Metals is an online retail precious metals company. That's one of our core business units. We buy and sell gold and silver coins all over the United States. People buy online. They can order by phone, but we're really much bigger than that. We have a huge capital markets business that we also operate. We have a very large depository, one of the largest in the world, that's located in Shiner, Texas, where we store for precious metals IRAs, large institutional clients, large banks, family offices, other precious metals companies. So we're a major player in the space. We're launching 2 precious metals ETFs here in the next couple of months. So we have a vertically integrated business that touches everyone from grandma buying 1 silver coin all the way up to billionaires and large wealth management firms.
How did this vision come about?
Well, that's a bit of a long story. I'll try to keep it brief. My background is electrical engineering. I started my career at Texas Instruments, and I was at TI for 5 years. And then I was on the television show, The Apprentice, with Donald Trump. That was we filmed it in 2005, and it aired in 2006. And I grew up poor, and doing engineering classes, you get no exposure whatsoever to finance. So I had no financial background whatsoever. And I joke that at this period in my life, when I came off of The Apprentice, I went through sort of a homeschooling program, a self-taught homeschool, where I just started learning about finance. And I asked myself the question, why does the paper dollar have value? And I was curious what that process was, because I know that gold and silver had been money throughout history. And that led me down what I refer to as the yellow brick road. And I started buying gold and silver. And this was right before the great financial crisis. I had a German friend, who had millions of dollars worth of metal during that financial crisis, and he was relocating his family to Paraguay. He loved the investment opportunities down there in forestation, and so he asked me to help him sell those coins, and we did. We sold millions of dollars in about 48 hours, and I said, I guess I'm in the precious metals business. Fast forward a couple of years, my number one customer, I was a broker. My number one customer was this company, Casper Companies, which was 125-year-old South Texas family business, invented the shopping cart. 90% of newspaper racks in North America were manufactured there. And the gentleman who is now the CEO, 5th generation CEO, Jason Casper, he was 28 at the time. He was starting a hedge fund. He was putting some of his family's wealth into precious metals. He had gotten connected to me. We hit it off. We back in the day over Skype, when Skype was a thing, we would have like daily Skype calls talking about like the financial markets, and we decided to launch this company, Texas Precious Metals, because the Caspers had all this metal and it was just sitting there, and they wanted to earn a dividend on that metal for the hedge fund, and so we spun up the company. And I often say it's better to be lucky than good. The week that we launched gold and silver, this was in 2011. The week that we launched, precious metals skyrocketed, and we were one of the only games in town. Incidentally, as we're recording this week is our 15-year anniversary. So it's been quite the journey. But we launched, like I said, as an e-com player, and we really transformed the industry because at the time it was the precious metals business was late to e-commerce because it was very difficult to ship metals and to do so securely and insure it. And at the time, everyone was using U.S. Postal Service registered mail, which was terribly slow. It was untrackable, and good luck if a package got lost getting money from the U.S. Postal Service.
Absolutely.
So we partnered with UPS, and UPS had a special medical program called Proactive Response, where they were able to ship products, high value products, really important products, next day air, through like this concierge service. So we repurposed that program and really kind of reinvented the precious metal space by shipping packages, next day air delivery, fully insured, and we were using UPS Capital. FedEx has a similar program now, so we use both carriers. But that's what really launched our business. At the time, we found ourselves in the middle of the Eagleford Shale as well. So this was the big oil boom in South Texas, and we say everybody down there was getting mailbox money. I'll tell you a quick little story. We had a grandma one time who she went into the local bank, and she wanted to deposit this $1,500 royalty check that she got, and the lady on the other end of the counter said, "Ma'am, that's not $1,500. That's $1.5 million."
Oh my gosh!
So we were getting a lot of those stories, and so we were getting a lot of business traction in South Texas as time went on. And then the thing that really transformed us was when we launched our depository in 2018, and to this day we're now the fastest growing depository. We have, I won't tell you the number, but it's well into the billions of holdings that we have there, and yeah, and just proud to represent Texas, represent Rodeo. Our parent company also owns Circle Y, and Bedrock Truck Beds also sponsors at National Finals Rodeo.
Well, and it seems to, obviously, precious metals have been around for thousands of years, and they've held value for, since the beginning of time, and somebody found a shiny piece of gold. But it also seems like you guys are trying to make it easier to access with multiple generations. Not because, honestly, a lot of people say grandparents, invest in gold and silver and keep coins, but your platform seems to kind of open it up to everybody.
Yeah, it does. And I'm glad that you bring this up, because people have asked us about our marketing. And I always say that, we sell the Texas, we don't sell the precious metals. And what I mean by that is, we are not like you've probably seen advertising on like talk radio where people are like, buy gold now, the dollar's going to nothing, and the Federal Reserve, and all of this fear mongering. And I don't like that on my conscience. I always say, I don't want to convince you to buy precious metals, but once you know that you want to buy precious metals, I just want to convince you to buy from us. Yeah. And so to your point, we try to make it as easy as possible, and we're taking what is fundamentally a widget, a heavy kind of analog product, and we're trying to make it as digital as possible for people, to make it as easy and convenient for people to just buy on their phone, buy online, to ship the next day, and to try to have an experience like what we're accustomed to with Amazon.
The other thing too, Brylan was showing me on your website, you guys did some commemorative coins. So it not only gives you an opportunity to buy silver, but you can buy a cowboy coin. That is so cool. Who came up with that idea?
Yeah, so obviously, large investors that are coming into the market, they're buying, straight bullion bars, like gold and silver bars. They're paying the least amount of money that they can for them because they're buying in, millions of dollars. for gift giving, for my children, for, my nieces and nephews, you always want to have something fun, that has a little bit of a wow factor. That's not just, some plain bar. So we've entered into some really fun partnerships with professional rodeo. So we have a series of rodeo coins representing all the different disciplines. We sponsor Riley Webb. We sponsor Cody Webster. They each have their own coins. We just signed up Josie Connor. You can't have Riley without Josie now. So, you got to have the it couple. So we're going to be doing a coin for her. We have a partnership with UFC, so we've been doing a Hall of Fame series with those guys. Texas A&M University. We just did a big sponsorship deal with Dale Brisby at Rodeo Time. So we're going to have a whole series of Rodeo Time coins that we're doing with him. So we just like to keep it fun and interesting and have some neat gifts. And, these are generational heirlooms that you pass down. I have coins from my family members that, I'll never sell just because they're meaningful to me.
I am so glad. This is going in a lot better direction than I thought it would. When he was talking about TI calculators, all I could think of was all the backdoor channels we used to use on TI-83s in high school.
That's right. Yeah, I have PTSD from staring at that TI calculator. It was really funny because, of course, being an engineer, like I spent my whole life like using these TI graphing calculators, and then sure enough, I end up working at Texas Instruments. Not in the calculator business, though. I was in the semiconductor side.
That's awesome.
Well, and when you break down investments, what are some key points that you could educate our demographic in when they are getting involved in Texas precious metals or any of this field?
Yeah. So I think, I think of precious metals less of it as an investment and more as like an insurance policy. One thing that most people don't realize is that the price of gold has outperformed the total return on the S&P 500 for the last 25 years. And so we are absolutely seeing dollar depreciation. That's not subjective. That's an objective reality. The dollar has lost 98% of its value. So what does that mean? That means all assets go up when that happens. And that's not just gold and silver. That's land, that's ground beef at the grocery store and everything else. So, I like to say, I don't think people should put all of their wealth into precious metals by any stretch, but I think it makes sense to have, a portion, 5%, 10%, and that can fluctuate over time, just as a hedge. And it's, the ultimate currency. It's the currency par excellence. It's why central banks hold gold on their balance sheets. It's why sovereign institutions hold gold on their balance sheets. So I think it makes sense for a lot of people. When you're buying precious metals, the biggest piece of advice I would give is, at the end of the day, we say gold is gold, silver is silver, and you want to buy it for the least amount of money that you can. And in our business, as you know, the price of gold fluctuates every day. Price of silver fluctuates every day. And then there's a premium that is attached on top of that when you actually buy the physical product. Why is that? Well, it's a manufactured widget. So there's cost to manufacture into a smaller denomination. There are financing costs, there's shipping costs, there's overhead. And obviously, companies need to make money. But there's a really big distinction in our industry between retail businesses, e-commerce retail businesses like ours and others who sell at very low premiums, and the guys that you hear like on talk radio who will send you to a boiler room, sales guys, and they will sell you these overpriced collectible coins that fetch twice as much as the underlying gold value. And I think that's really risky because when it comes time to sell the metal back, ultimately you buy it back for what it melts for, on or around there, a little bit below or a little bit above. But it basically, gold is gold, silver is silver. So my advice is, when you're buying in volume, be a little less concerned about, a particular product, and try to buy the underlying metal for the least amount of money. That's the advice that I would give.
That's sharp too. I mean, because obviously you want a return on said investment, and when it comes time to sell, you want to be able to collect something that's fair.
Yeah, you're trying to reduce that friction cost, So there's obviously a cost to acquire metal, but you want to make that as least damaging as possible, and hopefully make it a sensible insurance policy for you.
Let's take a quick pause, and we'll be right back. Want to relive the best NFR moments from the last 40 years? We've got you covered at NFRExperience.com. Check out the NFR History tab at the website for a walk, or should we say gallop, down memory lane. You'll find images, recaps, and videos from the greatest moments from the last 40 years in Las Vegas. From Ty Murray to Trevor Brazil, Louis Field to Casey, Charmaine James to Mary Berger, Fred Whitfield to Joe Beaver, and everything in between, you'll find it here. There's something for all rodeo fans. Check it out at NFRExperience.com. The NFR and Las Vegas, where every moment is legendary. So we were chatting a little bit before we started recording about a book that you wrote in your 20s. And I know you haven't referenced it in a long time, but you kind of alluded to some of the experiences you had. So tell us a little bit about why you were inspired to write a book about being a man in your 20s.
You know, I had just come off of The Apprentice, and The Apprentice was a wild experience. At the time, the show was the #1 show on television. And I went from being, an anonymous, sales engineer at Texas Instruments to being famous overnight. And, you always wonder, what is it like walking down the street and being recognized and signing autographs? And, you felt like you were a movie star for that period of time. That was a difficult and unsettling experience, being in the magazines and feeling like, your identity is taken away from you a little bit, especially in reality TV, right? If you're an actor and you're playing a role, it's easy to separate the actor from the role. But when you're on reality TV, they create and they turn you into a character based on whatever the narrative is that they want. And that representation of you might not necessarily be you. I use the example all the time. If I have a camera on you 24/7, I can make you look like whatever I want you to look like. You can look like the nicest person on the planet, or you could look like, just a terrible person. So it was tough because this was all pre-social media and pre-YouTube. And this was an era when you left school, there were people that you never saw again. Right. And everybody in my life up until that point, people that I went to second grade with, were now seeing me on television for the first time in years, and they were thinking that was actually me. My wife, at the time, we had just gotten engaged, and most of my in-laws had never met me before, and they were being introduced to me for the first time on this reality TV show. So part of the reason for writing the book was as sort of an expression of really who I was, and to try to take some of that back. The other, and this was the most important reason, was I feel like in society today, it's really hard to transition from boyhood to manhood. There are not quite the same hurdles that sort of our ancestors had that really denoted, look, you're a man now, and go out into the world. And I felt like, for me, both college life and life after college was a prolonged adolescence. I have a chapter in that book called A Boy in a Business Suit. And it's like, you put on your business suit by day and walk in and have, business meetings with Samsung. And at night you were partying with your friends and playing video games. Yeah. And there's this just kind of this dichotomy between, or maybe compartmentalization of your life that was really, I think, a process for me to kind of work through. I played rugby. I went to church. I partied at the bars. I was in business. And it's like, how do you process all of that? And how do you really make strides to becoming a man and preparing for, I'm married. I have a bunch of children and business and so forth. And so I refer to the book as sort of like a reflection on the quarter life crisis, and kind of interweaving, some of my experiences on TV as well.
And you're so spot on, because, and it's been said a million times, you can build and build and build and create something that took you 10, 15, 20 years to create, but especially in today's world, in 20 seconds, it can all be gone if you say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing, especially with today's social media. So I what you're saying tracks with me, because I am a father of two, and I have a young son, so I get exactly what you're trying to portray.
we're all trying to find purpose in life, and we all arrive at that purpose at different stages and through different routes. And it's important to have purpose and not find yourself just languishing in life and just going through a routine without a sense of direction or a true north. And when I talk to people in college or new graduates, that's one of the things that I stress the most is finding your mission and working hard to identify that mission early in life, so that everything that you do is in orbit or in the direction of that mission.
Do you find it important to track on a generalized, like 5-year plan, 10-year plan, 20-year plan? How does that kind of work into the next, like each generation?
That's a great question. I'll tell you, for me, the challenge with a 5 or a 10-year plan is it puts sometimes undue pressure, and sometimes the roads that you take that you think are the right roads are actually the wrong roads, and sometimes the wrong roads end up being the right roads. Just in my own experience, I went from being dirt poor to, when I was 24, I was making well into 6 figures. And this was this was 2002. Right. So that was really meaningful money back then.
Real money. Yeah.
Yeah. And I had like a company car and a corporate card and like all of these things. And I just thought I was living the high horse. And then The Apprentice hit, and now I'm on the cover of magazines and I'm famous and all these things. And then within 4 years, I skipped this part of the story, but I lived in South America for a few years. Within 4 years, I'm married with a child. My wife is pregnant. I'm living on a cobblestone road in Paraguay, and I have $14 in my bank account. And I'm on a Mac laptop on a cardboard box, and it's remarkable to think about that. That was, 17 years ago. And it was the greatest thing that ever happened to me, to have the high highs and then to be brought low. And somebody would look at me at 30. I had no money. I had student loans. I had nothing. And so I always tell the younger guys that are 25 and they're stressed about like their 401ks. I'm like, man, you're already way ahead of where I was. So, you can catch up at the end.
Well, the thing, and my wife loves sending me memes about our generation, and the one today that I laugh at is finance bros. I mean, the guys that are trading, they're in their 30s, they're living a frat boy life, working for a hedge fund. But I think what you're trying to say is your journey has helped you appreciate where you are and the successes you've enjoyed because you've experienced everything. It's not just that you've been given something on a platter.
Yeah. And I've had the opportunity to spend a lot of time around very wealthy people. My circles include many billionaires, many, guys who have hundreds of millions of dollars. I spend a lot of time around celebrities. I'm on the board of advisors for a film studio. And to a person, every single one will say they thought these things would make me happy, and they don't. Yeah. And that's the cars, and that's the planes, and that's all these things. And none of those things make people happy. We think that they do. Yeah. And it doesn't matter how many people tell you that they don't. It's very difficult for us to think that. Now, don't get me wrong. Like, nobody wants the pressure of, scraping, and going paycheck to paycheck. There's definitely value to having, some money and a buffer. I'm not saying that, but the ultimate end goal is not, fame and fortune. It doesn't make anybody happy. And so the question then becomes, what is it? What is it that makes you happy? And I think deep, meaningful relationships, is the answer. And, and having a sense of purpose. And, for me, it's, a relationship with God. And, it's those things that in the end really matter the most. And you're a dad, as you said, of 2 children. Think about how those children have changed your life. And I think as a man, certainly give me immense purpose and helping them, and steward their journey into, young adults. So we try to live that in our company and, the way that we do business and our relationships with people. And, in the end, it's all dust and ashes, and it's how we treat people, and how we who we aspire to be in the end that matters the most, I think.
Well, you mentioned
Maybe this is
relationships.
a little deeper than most of your
No,
podcasts.
that's perfect. I mean,
I love it.
we're all getting wiser. That's why we try to do things like this and talk to people from all different walks of life. And I think it's awesome that you're connecting. How do I say this? Rodeo people being normal people. You're hardworking, blue collar. Like Riley Webb. We love the story because we saw him at the junior NFR coming up, and he literally has not changed. I think the first time I met him, he was 15 years old. And ever since then, he seeks people out that he knows, shakes their hand. It's great to see you. He's always got a smile on his face. I mean, I want people like that to be successful, because that to me is the salt of the earth. That's someone that appreciates the success that he's enjoyed, but he's also worked for it. Like, nothing has been handed to a guy like Riley. So I wish him nothing but the best. But I think it's awesome that you have a group of people that have wealth, but they're also willing to create a platform for other people to be successful, because high tide rises all boats, right?
Yeah, that's exactly it. I mean, and when at Casper Companies, the parent company of our business, we have a foundation. We donate a lot of money to local groups and charities, and high school kids that need scholarships. I mean, that's in the end, that's what it's all about. I mean, I always have this expression. I have it on the top of my counter. It says, your vocation should support your mission, and not the other way around. And so work is a means to an end. It's not the end. We've had tremendous success as a company. And with that success, it's a burden, because you think, well, how am I going to use this to better the world and better, help people? And you mentioned Riley Webb. We were very intentional with our sponsorship of Riley, because we aligned with his values and because we support him as a man, and we feel proud to put our name on his shirt, because of that. So, yeah, there's always a bigger picture, and it's part of the reason, honestly, circling back to rodeo, why we felt so connected. A lot of our employees, so we're located in Shiner, Texas, where they make Shiner Bock beer. Yep. And a lot of our employees are involved with rodeo, and a lot of our employees, their children are raising animals, and it's very much part of our ethos and our culture, which is why, for NFR, we have a lot of our employees, we fly them on out. It's like it's a big opportunity for them, and they love it. But it's the people. And we always say this when we're in Vegas, these are our people. These are our people, and it's salt of the earth. It's hard work. It's values. It's, believing in God, believing in this country, supporting our troops. It's, trying to uplift the world a little bit, and what I think has become a little bit of a darker time. And, that's one of the takeaways that we have with this partnership, is we want to promote what the cowboy and the cowgirl is, and the values that they represent, because it's very much aligned with our values.
So it had to be pretty fun being a partner at the NFR. I mean, that's a feather in your cap, but it also has to give you a little bit of a sense of pride, being able to do that.
Yeah, it does. And I was telling the story. I grew up in New Bedford, Massachusetts. There was one tree on my street. My whole entire dream in life was to own land and have horses, which I've later in life thankfully had the opportunity to do. We have 6 horses. We have a bunch of land here. But when I was a kid, my only exposure to rodeo was once a year on ESPN. They would show National Finals Rodeo. And I was telling this story to a friend. I was like a huge fan of Fred Whitfield. I don't know why. He was just like the coolest guy to me. And I was learning about all of the events at that time. And this is a city kid living in a tenement building with no exposure. And so I'm sitting there in the suite, at NFR this past Christmas. And I'm just thinking to myself, wow, if I could have told that, 12, 13-year-old kid that you're going to be a sponsor and your company's name is going to be at National Finals Rodeo, he wouldn't have believed it. And so it's deeply meaningful to me.
Well, I think that's an incredible point to end on for us here. You have touched so much, but you've also created a trustworthy platform for our listeners and given them a little bit of a backstory as to this company. And that is one of the biggest reasons we wanted you to come on, is really to tell that story to our fans.
Yeah, because it's intimidating, right? I mean, whenever you're talking about anyone's money, it's personal. But knowing that there's a platform that not only invests in our industry, but wants what's best for their customers, I mean, that matters.
Yeah, and thank you for having me on. And I would reiterate that our parent company, the company that we partnered with, has been in business since 1898 and has lived through 2 world wars, Great Depression, steel embargoes, oil shortages, something like 22 presidential administrations, and they're about as Texas as they come, and very, very well respected, especially in South Texas. And we really try to live out that legacy. And I'll close with just the point that I reiterated earlier. For us, it's about relationships and helping people. It's we play the long game. It's not about making all your money in one transaction. It's about being here for the next 100 years.
Well, we appreciate you carving out the opportunity for us to chat with you, and we look forward to seeing you back in Vegas at next year's NFR.
Looking forward to it. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Want to experience more of the NFR? Then visit NFRexperience.com, and we invite you to subscribe to NFR Extra on Apple Podcast, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and wherever you're listening right now. If you like what you've heard on NFR Extra, we would love it if you gave us a 5-star rating and tell your friends how to subscribe.